I remember the chilling night, the night I stumbled upon something I wish I hadn't. I was out exploring the backwoods, just trying to unwind, enjoy the solitude, and soak in the peacefulness of nature. But as the sun began to set, I realized I'd wandered deeper into the woods than I'd intended. That's when I heard distant voices, muffled and ominous. Curiosity got the better of me, and I moved closer to investigate, thinking it might be other hikers or campers. But what I saw froze me in my tracks. It was a group of hunters, their demeanor anything but friendly. They seemed fixated on something, huddled together, their words hushed. Fear crawled up my spine, and I debated whether to retreat quietly or confront them. But before I could decide, one of them spotted me. Their eyes locked onto mine, their expressions turning hostile, menacing. I tried to back away slowly, but they moved closer, their intentions unclear. I stumbled, twigs snapping under my feet, and that's when they began to approach, their footsteps echoing in the quiet woods. Panic surged through me, this realization that I might be in real danger. I turned to run, but they were faster. They chased after me, their shouts filling the air, their intentions malicious. I sprinted through the underbrush, branches scratching my arms, my heart pounding in my chest. I could hear them getting closer, their shouts growing louder, the fear intensifying with every step. I dared not look back, but I could sense their presence, this relentless pursuit. I didn't know where I was going, just desperate to escape. The woods felt like a labyrinth, trapping me in this terrifying chase. The night grew darker, the moon barely casting any light. I stumbled, almost losing my footing, but I pushed on, driven by sheer terror. I could feel their breath on my neck, their menacing words slicing through the silence. I saw it clearing up ahead and sprinted toward it, hoping for some kind of refuge. But as I entered, I realized it was a dead end, a small, secluded area surrounded by dense trees. Panic seized me as I looked around for any possible escape. But they were closing in, their eyes glinting in the darkness, their intentions clear. I was trapped, and the fear was paralyzing. I braced myself for the worst, my heart racing, my breaths ragged. I didn't know what they wanted, but their menacing demeanor painted a terrifying picture. Suddenly, a distant sound broke the silence, a ranger's whistle. The hunters hesitated, and that was my chance. I sprinted in the opposite direction, hoping to outrun them. I could hear the ranger's voice, shouting commands, and it gave me a flicker of hope. I didn't stop running until I reached the ranger station, out of breath, trembling, but grateful for the safety it provided. I explained what had happened, and the rangers went out to investigate. They assured me they'd keep an eye on the area and advised me to leave. I never looked back, the fear of what could have happened haunting me for weeks. It was a night of sheer terror, stumbling upon something sinister in the backwoods, an encounter that made me question the dangers hidden within the serenity of nature. I decided to explore the backwoods, seeking solitude and a break from the city chaos. The trees were my sanctuary, or so I thought. I wandered deeper into the woods, enjoying the tranquility until I stumbled upon a fenced area. Curiosity got the better of me, and I ventured in without realizing I was trespassing. The woods seemed denser here, the air heavy with tension. That's when I heard voices, angry and agitated. I spotted a couple of figures coming my way, and it dawned on me I was on someone's property, and they weren't happy about it. I tried to explain, to apologize for unknowingly trespassing, but they weren't interested in explanations. Their eyes burned with fury, their expressions menacing. Fear gripped me as they advanced, blocking my escape route. I felt this surge of panic, this realization that I was in serious trouble. They were intimidating, their words sharp and threatening. I didn't know what to do, how to defuse the situation. I attempted to reason with them, to plead for leniency, but it fell on deaf ears. They demanded I leave immediately, their voices booming, sending shivers down my spine. I tried to backtrack, to find my way out, but they blocked every path, their anger palpable. I felt trapped, this overwhelming sense of vulnerability. I turned to leave, but they pursued me, their threats growing louder. I stumbled over roots and rocks, the fear driving me to run as fast as I could. I didn't know the woods well enough to find my way out, and panic clouded my judgment. Every step felt like an eternity, the thumping of my heart drowning out everything else. I could hear them closing in, their shouts echoing through the trees. I dared not look back, fearing what I might see. I spotted a clearing and ran towards it, hoping for an escape route. But it was a dead end, surrounded by thick vegetation. My heart sank as I realized I had nowhere to go. They were getting closer, their voices fierce, their threats chilling. I tried to reason with them again, to plead for mercy, but they were relentless. Their demeanor was menacing, their intentions unclear. I braced myself for the worst, my heart racing, my mind racing even faster. I didn't know what they were capable of, but their hostility was terrifying. Suddenly, a distant sound broke the tension, a ranger's whistle. The men hesitated, and that was my chance. I bolted in the opposite direction, praying for safety. I didn't stop running until I reached a main trail, breathless, trembling, but grateful to have escaped. I reported the incident to the authorities, and they assured me they'd investigate. But the fear of encountering those territorial landowners again haunted me for weeks. It was a day of sheer terror, stumbling upon threatening individuals in the backwoods, an encounter that made me rethink the dangers lurking in seemingly peaceful places. We were a group of friends, seeking a weekend away from the city buzz, looking for adventure in the backwoods. But what started as fun turned into a nightmare. We set up camp, laughing and joking around the fire, sharing stories under the stars. But as the night deepened, we heard footsteps around our campsite. At first, we dismissed it as animals or our imagination, but the sounds persisted, growing closer and more deliberate. Tension filled the air as we exchanged worried glances. Suddenly, a figure emerged from the darkness, holding a gleaming knife. Fear gripped us, this realization that something was terribly wrong. We scrambled for safety, our hearts pounding, adrenaline coursing through our veins. We didn't know who this person was or what they wanted, but the glint of the blade was enough to send shivers down our spines. We fled into the woods, trying to escape, but the figure pursued us, their footsteps echoing behind us. Panic consumed us, this fear of the unknown, of what might happen if they caught up. As we ran, we stumbled upon a ranger station, relief flooding through us. We thought we were safe, that help had arrived, but our relief turned to horror when we realized the ranger was acquainted with the knife-wielding man. Confusion clouded our minds. How could a ranger be associated with someone threatening us with a knife? The ranger's smile was chilling, his demeanor unsettling. It became clear they were in cahoots. A sinking feeling settled in our stomachs, this realization that we were in deeper trouble than we'd imagined. We had nowhere to turn, no one to trust. We had to think fast, to find a way out of this dire situation. We huddled together, trying to figure out our next move, but the fear paralyzed us. Whispers of escape filled the air, but we knew it wouldn't be easy. We had to act quickly, silently, to outsmart the dangerous alliance before us. We formulated a plan, each step calculated, each move cautious. We had to find a way out, to escape this nightmare. We waited for the right moment, watching for any opportunity to break free. And when it presented itself, we seized it, bolting into the woods, running for our lives. We didn't stop until we reached the main trail, breathless, hearts pounding, but grateful to have escaped that menacing duo. We reported the incident to the authorities, but the fear lingered, the memory of that chilling encounter etched into our minds forever. It was a night of terror, a camping trip turned into a nightmare by the presence of a man with a knife and a ranger we couldn't trust. It made us question the safety of the backwoods, the people we encountered, and the thin line between safety and peril. I embarked on a solo camping trip, seeking solace amidst the towering trees and serene landscapes. But little did I know, my peaceful excursion would turn into a fight for survival. The woods greeted me with their usual calmness as I set up camp, the crackling fire providing a comforting warmth. Night fell, and the woods seemed to come alive with sounds, a symphony of nature's whispers. But amidst the tranquility, I heard something out of place, the distant sound of rustling leaves and hushed voices. Curiosity nudged me forward, drawing me towards the sounds. What I stumbled upon shook me to the core, a group of poachers, their faces hidden in the shadows, their actions deliberate and secretive. I froze, the realization of the danger I'd inadvertently stumbled upon hitting me like a ton of bricks. My heart raced as I contemplated my next move. Should I retreat silently or confront them? But before I could decide, a twig snapped beneath my feet, alerting the poachers to my presence. Their gazes locked onto me, their eyes reflecting surprise, then turning menacing. Fear surged through me as they approached, their demeanor intimidating, their intentions unclear. I tried to explain, to reason with them, but they remained silent, their expressions hardened. I backed away slowly, attempting to diffuse the tension, but they advanced, blocking my escape route. Panic gripped me as I realized the gravity of the situation. I was in the midst of dangerous pursuits, entangled in something far beyond my control. Their threats were veiled, their actions calculated. I attempted to negotiate, to plead for my safety, but my words fell on deaf ears. The eerie silence of the woods was disrupted by their ominous whispers. I made a desperate attempt to retreat, to find a way out, but they cornered me, their faces contorted with hostility. I felt a chilling sensation crawl down my spine, the realization sinking in that my life was in imminent danger. The adrenaline coursing through me pushed me to run, to escape the clutches of these dangerous individuals. Branches scratched at my skin as I sprinted through the woods, their shouts echoing behind me, a cacophony of threats and malice. My heart raced, my breaths labored as I pushed through the underbrush, the fear driving me forward. I stumbled, nearly falling, but I forced myself to keep going, knowing that stopping meant certain peril. I prayed for some miracle, some semblance of safety as I navigated the maze of trees and darkness. But the echoes of their footsteps persisted, a constant reminder that danger was close on my heels. I spotted a clearing and darted towards it, a glimmer of hope amidst the terror. But my hopes were shattered as the clearing revealed itself to be a trap, surrounded by thick foliage. I was trapped, a feeling of helplessness washing over me. The poachers closed in, their voices growing louder, their intentions becoming clearer. But just as I thought it was the end, a distant sound interrupted the chilling silence, a ranger's call. The poachers hesitated, and that was my chance. I sprinted in the opposite direction, hoping for a chance at survival. I ran until I reached the main trail, my breath ragged, my body trembling. Relief washed over me, but the fear lingered, the memory of that encounter haunting me for nights to come. It was a terrifying ordeal, stumbling upon poachers in the wilderness. The day started like any other, a solo hike through the remote trails. Nature's beauty surrounded me, the rustling leaves and chirping birds offering a symphony of tranquility. But as dusk approached, I took a turn that changed everything. The woods grew denser, the trees towering above me. That's when I stumbled upon an encampment, tents nestled among the trees. I thought nothing of it, assuming it was just another group of hikers. Curiosity piqued, I ventured closer, but as I approached, an unease settled in. The people in the camp seemed wary, their gazes shifting towards me with suspicion. I attempted a friendly greeting, but their responses were guarded, their eyes betraying a deep distrust. I sensed that I had unknowingly crossed an invisible boundary, and their discomfort was palpable. Trying to ease the tension, I continued walking, hoping to find a different path. But it seemed every turn led me deeper into their territory. As night fell, I realized I was lost. Panic started to claw at me as I retraced my steps, only to find myself circling back to their encampment. The people there watched me closely, their expressions hardened. I tried to convey that I meant no harm, but their suspicion only grew. I attempted to strike up conversation, but their responses were curt, their body language defensive. It became clear they had a deep distrust of outsiders, and I was an unwanted intruder. I sought refuge in my tent, hoping the night would pass without incident. But shadows danced on the walls, and the silence of the woods was suffocating. Then came the sounds, whispers in the darkness, footsteps around my tent. I peeked outside, but I couldn't see anyone. Fear clutched at my chest, the realization sinking in that I was being watched. I tried to ignore it, to convince myself it was my imagination playing tricks, but the sense of being unwelcome persisted. Every rustle of leaves, every snap of a twig, felt like a threat. As the night wore on, I heard murmurs from the nearby camp. Their voices carried a menacing tone, their words muffled but laced with hostility. I dared not confront them, fearing what might transpire. I huddled inside my tent, heart racing, listening intently for any movement outside. Suddenly, a flashlight beam pierced through the tent fabric. Panic surged within me as I heard footsteps closing in, heavy and purposeful. I held my breath, hoping they would pass by, but the footsteps stopped right outside my tent. A voice, cold and assertive, spoke a warning, a demand to leave immediately. I stayed frozen, my mind racing for a way out of this nightmare. The tension in the air was palpable, thick with the threat of something sinister. I heard them moving away eventually, but the fear lingered. I remained wide awake, waiting for first light, praying for a chance to escape. With the break of dawn, I packed up in haste, my heart pounding with every movement. I didn't dare look back, fearing what I might see. I walked for what felt like an eternity, relief washing over me as I finally reached a familiar trail. It was only then that I felt safe enough to breathe. It was a night of terror, encountering survivalists with a deep distrust of outsiders. Their hostility and intimidation turned a simple hike into a harrowing ordeal. I was out hiking in the deep woods, just me and the quiet. The sun was sinking, and I needed to find a spot to set up camp. Found this clearing, kinda hidden, surrounded by trees. Seemed perfect. I set up my tent, made a small fire, and cooked some food. Everything was cool until I heard distant chanting. It was eerie, like whispers carried by the wind. I tried to ignore it, thinking it might be my imagination playing tricks. Night fell, and I was sitting by the fire, feeling the darkness closing in. That's when I saw them. Figures moving between the trees, dressed in robes, barely visible in the shadows. They were chanting louder now, some weird language I couldn't understand. I panicked but tried to stay calm, thinking maybe they were just some campers or something. But something felt off. I watched from my tent, trying to make sense of what they were doing. They formed a circle, and there was this altar in the middle, candles flickering around it. I couldn't see everything clearly, but I saw them doing something strange, like a ritual. My heart was pounding, and I wanted to leave, but I was frozen, scared they might see me. Then, I accidentally knocked over a stick. The sound echoed in the silence, and they all stopped chanting. It felt like the whole forest held its breath. I held mine too, hoping they didn't notice. But they did. They turned toward me, their faces hidden in the darkness, but I could feel their eyes on me. Panic took over, and I bolted out of there, crashing through branches, not caring if I made noise. I heard them behind me, running too. My heart was racing, and I felt like I was being chased by the night itself. I didn't look back, I just ran, my breath ragged, my legs burning. Somehow, I managed to lose them and found my way back to the trail. I kept running until I reached my car, not stopping even then. I drove until I hit a town, somewhere safe. My mind was a mess. I couldn't shake off the feeling of being watched. I tried to tell people what happened, but they looked at me like I was crazy. No one believed me. But I know what I saw. I stumbled upon something I wasn't supposed to see, something dark and hidden in the woods. To this day, I can't shake off the fear that they might come looking for me, that I stumbled into something sinister. The image of those figures in the woods, the chanting, it haunts me. I don't know what they were doing, but I know I never want to find out. And I'll never go back into those woods again. I was out for a drive, taking the scenic route through the backwoods. It was getting dark, and I needed to find a place to crash for the night. Found this quiet spot, far from the main road, surrounded by trees. Figured it'd be a good place to park and sleep in my car. As I settled in, I noticed some flickering lights in the distance. Curiosity got the better of me, so I wandered closer to check it out. There were these guys, looked rough, doing something by a rundown cabin. They were hauling boxes from a van, moving in and out like they were hiding something. I couldn't make out what they were up to, but it didn't feel right. I thought about leaving, but then I heard voices. They were talking about something shady, mentioning stuff like making drops and moving merchandise. My gut churned. I knew I had stumbled onto something serious. I tried to sneak back to my car, but a twig snapped under my foot. They heard it. The air went cold, and I knew I was in trouble. They turned, spotted me, and I took off running, crashing through the underbrush. I heard them shouting, their footsteps echoing behind me. I didn't dare look back, just ran blindly through the trees. Panic was eating me alive. I didn't know where I was going, but I needed to get away. Fear fueled my legs. I was out of breath, stumbling over roots and rocks. Finally, I reached my car, heart pounding in my chest. I jumped in, fumbled with the keys, and floored it. I didn't stop until I hit a gas station in the nearest town. My hands were shaking as I tried to explain to the attendant what had happened. I could feel their eyes burning into me, their voices in my head. I'd stumbled upon something illegal, something dangerous. I knew they'd come after me if they found out I saw them. The fear clawed at me. I couldn't sleep, couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. I reported it to the police, but they didn't take me seriously. They brushed it off, said there wasn't enough evidence. But I knew what I saw, and I knew it was real. I was terrified that those guys might come looking for me, to silence me. I stayed on edge, looking over my shoulder everywhere I went. Every car passing by made my heart skip a beat. I couldn't shake off the fear that they were out there, waiting for the right moment to strike. To this day, I steer clear of remote backwoods. That experience scarred me. The fear of those criminals, their shady dealings, it's like a nightmare that won't fade. I don't know what they were up to, and I don't want to find out. All I want is to forget and move on, far away from that terrifying encounter. I was driving down this lonely road, trees towering on both sides. It was getting late, and the darkness was creeping in. Then I saw this figure on the side of the road, thumb out, hitchhiking. I slowed down, thinking I'd offer a ride. Seemed harmless, you know? He looked normal enough, jeans, worn-out jacket, scruffy hair. But when he got in, something felt off. The air in the car went kinda tense, and I tried to make small talk, but he was quiet, just staring ahead. As we drove, he started mumbling to himself, whispering things I couldn't catch. I felt a knot form in my stomach, like something wasn't right. I tried to ignore it, hoping it was just nerves. Then he asked me to pull over, said he needed to pee. I stopped, and he got out, disappeared into the trees. I glanced around, feeling exposed, alone on this dark road. Minutes passed, and he didn't come back. I started to feel anxious, wondering what was taking him so long. That's when I heard rustling in the bushes. My heart pounded. I knew he wasn't alone out there. He emerged from the shadows, grinning, something wild in his eyes. His grin sent chills down my spine, and I regretted stopping. I asked if he was okay, but he just chuckled, a hollow sound that made my skin crawl. He got back in the car, and that's when I noticed a knife tucked into his belt. Panic hit me like a truck, but I didn't want to provoke him. I tried to act calm, like everything was normal. He started talking about strange stuff, rambling about things that made no sense. His voice was getting louder, more erratic. I didn't know what to do, didn't want to set him off. I kept driving, hoping to find some sign of civilization, somewhere safe. But the road stretched on, trees closing in, and my mind raced with worst-case scenarios. I didn't know if I'd make it out alive. He kept fidgeting, eyes darting around, like he was paranoid, or maybe planning something. I didn't dare ask, I just wanted to get away from him. Suddenly, he told me to stop the car. He said he needed to get out. I pulled over, relieved that he wanted to leave. But as he got out, he leaned close to the window, that grin back on his face. He whispered something chilling, something about seeing me again soon. I hit the gas, not looking back. My heart raced, and I kept checking the rearview mirror, afraid he'd come after me. I drove until I reached a gas station, somewhere with people around. I felt safer there, but the fear lingered. I reported it to the authorities, but they couldn't do much. They said without more info, it was just my word against his. I felt helpless, haunted by the encounter, scared he might come back for me. I couldn't sleep, couldn't shake off the feeling of dread. I kept imagining his face, that knife, his words echoing in my head. I avoided driving alone, avoided those backwoods like the plague. Even now, I'm on edge, wondering if I'll see him again, wondering what he meant by seeing me soon. It's like a nightmare that won't fade, a chilling encounter that's left me shaken to the core. I was exploring the backwoods, like I usually do. I heard about this forbidden area, said to be off limits cause it was protected land. But I wanted to see for myself, you know? I figured it couldn't be that bad. The trees were thick, the path narrow, but I pushed on. There was this feeling, like someone was watching, but I brushed it off. I kept going, curious, ignoring the warnings. Then, I stumbled upon this clearing, felt like I'd entered a different world. It was serene, beautiful, but there was this vibe, like I didn't belong. I should have turned back, but I didn't. I saw signs, warnings nailed to trees, telling me to leave. But I kept walking, thinking it was just to scare people off. It was peaceful, and I wanted to explore more. That's when I heard footsteps, slow and deliberate. My heart raced. I was trespassing, and someone had found me. I turned, and there they were, these figures dressed in rugged clothes, like they'd been living in the woods for ages. They didn't say anything, just stared at me, eyes intense, like they were protecting something sacred. I tried to apologize, saying I didn't mean any harm, but they stayed silent. One of them stepped forward, pointing away, signaling for me to leave. I nodded, wanting to get out of there. But then another figure appeared, bigger, angrier. They spoke harshly, in a language I didn't understand, but their tone was clear. They wanted me gone. I backed away slowly, scared to turn my back on them. But when I did, I heard them coming after me. I bolted, running blindly through the trees, branches scratching my face. I didn't know where I was going. I just wanted to escape. Fear pushed me on. I felt like I was being chased by something primal, something protective of that forbidden place. I didn't stop until I reached my car, breathless and shaking. I drove, not looking back, praying they wouldn't follow. My mind raced, trying to make sense of what had happened. I didn't report it. Who'd believe me? I trespassed, got caught, and ran. I felt guilty, but the fear overshadowed everything. Since then, I haven't gone back to those backwoods. But sometimes, I feel their eyes on me, like they're still watching, making sure I stay away. It's like a warning, a reminder of what could have been worse. I can't shake off the feeling that they're out there, protecting that land from people like me. It's a haunting feeling, knowing I crossed a line, and there might be consequences if I ever dare to venture back. I signed up for this survival challenge, thinking it'd be fun, you know? Out in the wilderness, testing my skills. But things went south real quick. We were dropped off in the middle of nowhere, miles away from civilization. The goal was to survive for a week, no phones, no help. I was pumped, excited for the adventure. The first few days were tough, but I managed. Built a shelter, hunted for food, tried to stay positive. But then things got weird. One evening, I heard footsteps, faint but there. I brushed it off, thinking it was just an animal. But the feeling lingered, like someone was watching me, waiting. That night, I heard whispers, voices in the dark. I thought it was my mind playing tricks, but it felt too real. I stayed awake, clutching my makeshift weapon, waiting for dawn. Days passed, and the feeling of being watched grew stronger. I kept my guard up, always looking over my shoulder. But I couldn't shake off the unease. One morning, I found strange markings on trees, symbols scratched into the bark. It freaked me out, but I told myself it was probably just some prank by the organizers. As the days went by, food became scarce. I had to go deeper into the woods to hunt. That's when I stumbled upon something chilling, a makeshift camp, not too far from mine. There were remnants of a fire, empty food cans, but no one in sight. I felt a chill run down my spine. I wasn't alone. Panic surged. Who else was out here with me? I tried to stay calm, focused on surviving, but every sound made me jump. The whispers at night grew louder, like they were circling me. Then, one evening, I saw a figure in the distance, just for a moment. It disappeared into the trees before I could make out who it was. Fear gripped me. Was someone stalking me? I didn't sleep much after that. Every rustle of leaves, every crack of a branch sent shivers down my spine. I felt like prey, like someone was playing a twisted game with me. I wanted to bail, to get out of there, but it was a challenge, and quitting wasn't an option. I had to tough it out, even though every instinct screamed to run. One night, I woke to find my camp ransacked. Supplies were scattered, my shelter damaged. I panicked, heart pounding in my chest. I knew I had to leave. I packed what I could and started moving, not caring about the challenge anymore. I needed to get out, to find help. But as I ventured deeper into the woods, I heard footsteps behind me. I ran, not looking back, adrenaline pumping through my veins. I didn't know who or what was chasing me, but I didn't want to find out. Fear drove me forward. Hours passed, and I finally stumbled upon a road. I flagged down a passing car, frantically explaining what had happened. They took me to safety, and I reported everything to the authorities. They searched the area, but they found no one. No evidence, no signs of another person out there. They said it might have been my mind playing tricks, the stress of the challenge getting to me. But I knew what I experienced was real. I felt eyes on me, heard whispers in the dark, and saw someone lurking in the shadows. It's like I stumbled upon something I shouldn't have, someone who didn't want me there. Even now, I can't shake off the feeling of dread. I don't know who or what was out there, but it's left me terrified of the woods, haunted by the memory of that survival challenge gone wrong. I was out camping alone, deep in the woods. It was quiet, too quiet. The trees made weird shapes in the dark, and I couldn't shake off this feeling of being watched. Brushed it off, thinking it was just my mind playing tricks in the wilderness. But it kept nagging at me. One evening, as I was setting up my tent, I noticed movement at the edge of the woods. Couldn't quite make out what it was, but someone was there, I was sure. I called out, but no answer. Maybe an animal, I thought, trying to convince myself. Night fell, and I could feel eyes on me. Kept turning around, but nothing. Just darkness. I tried to sleep, but every rustle made me jump. Then, I heard footsteps, faint but there. My heart raced. I stepped out, but the noise stopped. Nothing. My nerves were on edge. The next day, I found strange things around camp. Twigs arranged in patterns, stuff moved. Someone was messing with me. I searched the woods, but no sign of anyone. I felt vulnerable, exposed. It was like a game, and I was the target. That night, I saw figures at the edge of the clearing. Not clear, just shadows. They didn't move, just watched. I yelled, "Who's there?" No reply. Fear gripped me. I stayed awake, staring into the darkness, feeling their eyes on me. I didn't dare move, didn't dare sleep. In the morning, I decided to leave, packed up in a hurry. As I walked out, I saw shapes following in the trees. My heart raced, and I started running. Branches snapped behind me, but I didn't look back. I reached my car, drove off like mad, but that feeling of being watched stayed with me. I couldn't explain it, but I knew those eyes were still on me, even as I left the woods behind. It was real, terrifyingly real. I don't know who or what they were, but I never want to feel that fear again. The unknown watching you, stalking you, it's something I can't forget. I was hiking in the woods, enjoying the solitude until I lost my way. Night crept in, and I needed shelter. Saw this isolated cabin, hoping for a safe haven. Knocked on the door, no answer. It creaked open, so I went in, thinking it was abandoned. Lit a fire, trying to warm up, but then I heard footsteps outside. The door slammed open, and there stood a guy, rough-looking and furious. "What do you want?" he growled. I explained, said I was lost and needed a place to stay, but he didn't buy it. He eyed me like I was trouble. I backed off, trying to calm him down, but he wasn't having any of it. He pushed me out into the dark and slammed the door shut. I was left shivering in the cold rain pouring down, feeling like I'd stepped into a horror movie. I begged him to reconsider, but he just glared at me. I wandered, trying to find somewhere else, but the storm was brutal, and I was disoriented in the woods. Every sound made my heart race, thinking he might come after me. Hours passed, and I stumbled back to the cabin, hoping he'd change his mind. Knocked again, but when he opened the door, he was angrier, had a shotgun this time. I backed away, terror flooding me. He warned me to leave or else. I had no choice but to run, get away from that hostile man in his cabin. Rain battered harder, lightning cracked, and I ran until I found my car, trembling all over. Drove away, but that encounter stuck with me. The hostility, feeling like I was an intruder, it was chilling. I couldn't shake off the fear of being unwelcome, chased off like a threat. That cabin, that guy, I never wanted to face either again. I was hiking through the backwoods, just enjoying the tranquility. The trees were tall, and the air smelled of earth. It was peaceful until I noticed something off, like a shift in the atmosphere. I couldn't put my finger on it, but my gut churned, warning me. I stumbled upon an area, signs of people passing through, but it wasn't marked on any map. Something about it felt wrong. There were strange noises, like whispers carried by the wind, too soft to make out. As I ventured deeper, the feeling of unease grew stronger. I saw markings on trees, not like graffiti, more like warnings. Symbols etched into the bark, not something I recognized. It made my skin crawl. Then, I found scattered belongings, a torn backpack, a crushed water bottle. It looked recent, like someone had left in a hurry. My heart raced. I knew I shouldn't be there, but curiosity kept me going. The path twisted, and I felt disoriented, like the trees were closing in on me. The whispers grew louder, like people talking in hushed tones. I turned, expecting to see someone, but the woods were empty. It felt like eyes were watching me, like I was intruding into something I shouldn't. I should have turned back, but I pushed on, ignoring the fear gnawing at me. Then, I heard footsteps, faint but distinct. I froze, heart pounding. I looked around, but I saw no one. I thought about calling out, but something held me back. I kept walking, feeling like I was being followed. Every sound made me jump, every rustle of leaves sent shivers down my spine. I didn't know who or what was out there, but I wanted to get away. The path led me to a clearing, and that's when I saw the figures standing in the distance. They didn't move, just watched me with an intensity that made me want to bolt. I tried to speak, to ask if they needed help, but my voice stuck in my throat. I felt like an intruder in their world, unwelcome. I turned to leave, but the path I took was gone. It was like the woods had shifted, trapping me in that clearing. Panic clawed at me. I felt exposed, vulnerable. I tried to find my way out, but it felt like the trees were playing tricks, leading me in circles. The figures in the distance remained still, like guardians of that eerie place. Night fell, and the darkness was suffocating. I saw flickering lights, like distant fires, and heard chanting, eerie and unsettling. I didn't know what they were doing, but I didn't want to stick around to find out. I ran, crashing through branches, not caring about noise. Fear fueled my legs. I felt like prey, hunted by something unknown. Finally, I stumbled onto a familiar path and didn't stop running until I reached my car. I drove until I hit a town, somewhere safe. I reported what I saw to the authorities, but they brushed it off as my imagination. They said it was probably just other hikers. But I knew what I felt, what I saw. It was real. Even now, I can't shake off the feeling of dread. I stumbled into something hidden, something dangerous. The memory of those figures watching me, the chanting in the dark, it's a nightmare I can't forget. I was hiking deep into the backwoods, just exploring the wild. Trees were dense, and there was this feeling, like I'd stepped into a place forgotten by time. Then, I saw an old, hidden community nestled among the trees. The houses looked ancient, worn down by years of isolation. I felt a tug of curiosity and decided to check it out. But as I got closer, the feeling of being watched grew stronger. I saw curtains twitching, eyes peering from behind them. I knocked on a door, hoping to get some info about the place. An elderly man answered, his eyes cautious, like he was sizing me up. I asked about the community, but he just shook his head, muttered something about minding my own business, and shut the door. I left, but I couldn't shake off the sense of mystery about that place. I felt this urge to know more, to understand what made them so secluded. So, I lingered nearby, observing from a distance. I noticed their routines, strange gatherings at odd hours, people disappearing into the woods carrying stuff I couldn't quite make out. It was unsettling, but I couldn't look away. I tried asking locals about the community, but they brushed it off, said they didn't poke their noses into that side of the woods. It felt like a taboo subject. One night, I saw them conducting some kind of ceremony, a fire burning bright, figures moving around it. It sent shivers down my spine, and I knew I should stay away. But my curiosity got the better of me. I ventured closer, hiding behind trees, trying to get a better look. That's when I stepped on a twig, making a noise. They stopped, turned towards me, and I froze. It was like they knew I was there, their eyes piercing the darkness. I panicked, ran as fast as I could, heart pounding like a drum. I didn't stop until I reached my car, and when I did, it wouldn't start. Fear gripped me. I was trapped, surrounded by that eerie place. Then, they started coming out from the woods, walking slowly, silently, towards me. I locked myself in the car, praying for help, for someone to pass by. I saw them surround the car, their faces emotionless but their eyes burning with an intensity that sent shivers down my spine. I tried explaining, pleading, but they just stood there, like statues. Hours passed, and I heard a distant engine, a truck passing by. The sound scared them off, and I drove until I found help. I reported what happened, but no one believed me. Even now, I can't shake off the feeling of those eyes on me, that eerie silence. I stumbled upon something dark, something beyond my understanding. It's a nightmare I can't forget. I was hiking in the backwoods, enjoying the solitude and nature's beauty. But somehow, I lost track of the trail. The trees towered over me, and the sun was sinking fast. Panic started creeping in. I didn't want to be lost out here in the dark. I stumbled upon an old campsite, a tent torn and half collapsed. It felt eerie, like something terrible had happened here. There were scattered belongings, backpacks, clothes, even a map ripped to shreds. It sent shivers down my spine. I tried to make sense of it, to find clues about what went wrong. That's when I found a journal, weathered and worn. It belonged to the previous explorers. I started reading, and the more I read, the more my heart sank. They were excited about their expedition, like me, but things took a dark turn. Their entries grew frantic, talking about strange noises at night, feeling watched. They mentioned something about a presence, something ominous lurking in the woods. One of the entries spoke of a member missing, vanished without a trace. They searched but found nothing. Fear seeped into their words, a dread of the unknown. Another entry hinted at a storm that hit hard, howling winds tearing through the camp. They were terrified, feeling like the forest itself was against them. Then, the entries abruptly stopped. The final one was just a few frantic scribbles, words of desperation and fear. It was like they knew something awful was about to happen. I felt a chill. I was standing in the aftermath of a nightmare. I looked around, imagining their terror, their struggle to survive. That's when I heard a rustling in the bushes nearby. My heart skipped a beat, and I froze, fear gripping me. I wanted to run, but I was paralyzed with dread. I saw a figure emerging from the trees, disheveled, eyes wide with panic. It was a member of that expedition, wild-eyed and shaking. They mumbled something about not safe, run, and then collapsed. I ran, adrenaline pumping through my veins. I didn't look back, didn't want to see what was behind me. Fear pushed me forward, deeper into the woods. Hours passed before I stumbled onto a trail, relief flooding through me. I ran until I found help, reported what I saw to the authorities. They searched the area, but they found no trace of the missing explorers. They said it might have been an animal attack, or they might have gotten lost and perished in the storm. But I knew what I read in that journal, what I saw at that campsite. I knew something sinister lurked in those woods, something that took those explorers, leaving behind a chilling story of terror and tragedy. Even now, I can't shake off the feeling of dread, the images of that abandoned campsite, and the fear in that explorer's eyes. It's a nightmare that's etched into my memory, a story of a grim fate that haunts me. I was exploring the backwoods, just me and the quiet of nature. Trees surrounded me, and the air was fresh. That's when I stumbled upon signs of trapping, a couple of rusty, old bear traps hidden among the bushes. I didn't like the idea of trapping, so I started dismantling them. I didn't think much of it, just trying to protect wildlife. But that's when I heard it, the snap of a twig behind me. I turned, and there he was, a burly man, face weathered and eyes glaring at me. He was the trapper, and he didn't look pleased. I tried to explain, but he didn't want to listen. He started shouting, calling me a trespasser, accusing me of ruining his traps. I tried to reason with him, but his anger grew, and he grabbed my arm, squeezing it tight. I tried to pull away, but he was strong, his grip like a vice. He shoved me, and I stumbled backward, hitting a tree. Fear gripped me. I didn't want to escalate things, but he was furious. He threatened me, told me to leave and never come back. His words were like knives, cutting through the air. I nodded, scared, and slowly started backing away. But he followed, his steps heavy and determined. I picked up my pace, trying to put distance between us, but he kept coming, shouting curses at me. I ran, not looking back, heart pounding in my chest. I didn't know what he'd do, but I didn't want to find out. I had to get out of there, away from that angry trapper. I didn't stop until I reached my car, hands shaking as I fumbled for the keys. I drove until I hit a town, somewhere safe, where I could catch my breath. I reported the incident, but they said it was a dispute in the woods, nothing they could do. I felt helpless, scared that he might come after me. Even now, I can't forget the rage in his eyes, the aggression in his voice. It's like I stumbled into his territory, disrupting his world, and now I'm haunted by the fear of what he might do next. Sometimes, you never know what you'll encounter out in the wilderness. I was exploring the woods, just me and the quiet of nature. The trees were dense, and the sun cast dappled shadows on the forest floor. That's when I stumbled upon it, a hidden quarry tucked away from sight. I didn't know it was there. It felt out of place, like a secret kept from the world. Curiosity got the better of me, and I crept closer, trying to get a better look. There were trucks, machinery, and people moving around. They didn't look like workers, though, more like they were up to something shady. I felt a pang of unease, like I shouldn't be there. I hid behind a tree, trying to make sense of what was happening. They were loading crates onto trucks, working fast and secretive. It didn't feel right, like I stumbled upon something I shouldn't have. That's when one of them spotted me, pointed, and shouted. Panic surged through me, and I ran, crashing through the underbrush, heart pounding in my chest. I didn't want to stick around to find out what they were up to. I heard footsteps behind me, chasing me. Fear propelled me forward. I didn't know who they were, but I didn't want to find out. I just wanted to get away. I ran until I couldn't hear them anymore, found a hiding spot, and stayed there, trying to catch my breath. I didn't know what I had stumbled upon, but it felt dangerous. Hours passed, and I finally made it back to my car, heart still racing. I drove until I found a town, somewhere safe. I reported what I saw, but they said they'd look into it, that I shouldn't worry. But I couldn't shake off the feeling of dread. I stumbled upon something illegal, something that made me a target. The fear of what might happen next, of being hunted, haunted me. I didn't know who those people were or what they were doing, but I knew I shouldn't have seen it. It's like I entered a world I wasn't supposed to, and now I'm terrified of the consequences. Sometimes, the unknown in the woods hides more than just nature's secrets. I love hiking, you know? The tranquility of the woods, the fresh air, it's my escape. But last time, something weird happened. I was deep in the backwoods, enjoying the solitude, when I heard a rustling in the bushes nearby. I figured it was just an animal, so I brushed it off. But then, there was this slow, guttural growl, not like any animal I've heard before. It sent a chill down my spine. I stopped, listening intently, but there was silence. I tried to shrug it off as my imagination, but that feeling of unease lingered. As I kept walking, I heard more strange noises, like whispers carried by the wind. I tried to tell myself it was the breeze playing tricks, but it sounded like voices, murmuring just beyond my hearing. The woods felt different, like they were closing in on me. It was getting dark, and that's when the noises intensified. It was unnerving, like someone was playing mind games. I picked up my pace, wanting to get out of there, but the noises followed. I felt watched, like eyes were on me from every direction. Then, I heard footsteps behind me, soft but distinct. My heart raced. I turned, but there was no one. I quickened my pace, fear coiling in my stomach. I thought about turning back, but the thought of retracing my steps through those unsettling sounds made my skin crawl. So, I kept moving forward, hoping to reach the end of the trail. But the noises persisted, growing louder and more erratic. It was like they were mocking me, playing with my mind. I felt a growing sense of dread, a knot tightening in my chest. I saw it clearing ahead and made a run for it, hoping for some respite. But when I got there, the noises grew deafening, echoing in the emptiness. It was overwhelming, suffocating. I felt a presence, like someone was right behind me, breathing down my neck. I turned, but there was nothing there. Fear consumed me. I didn't want to be alone in those woods anymore. I tried to backtrack, but the noises surrounded me, disorienting me. Panic set in. I didn't know where I was, which way to go. The woods seemed to shift, trapping me in their maze. I heard a laugh, chilling and mocking, coming from everywhere and nowhere. I froze, heart pounding in my ears. I wanted to run, but fear rooted me to the spot. Then, I saw figures in the distance, shadowy and indistinct. They seemed to move, lurking just beyond my line of sight. I didn't know who or what they were, but I didn't want to find out. I ran blindly, branches scratching my face, thorns tearing at my clothes. I didn't care. I needed to escape. But the noises, the whispers, followed me, growing louder, more menacing. I stumbled upon a path, relief flooding through me. I sprinted until I reached my car, breathless and shaking. I drove until I found help, reported what happened, but they said it might have been my imagination, the sounds of the woods playing tricks on me. But I knew what I heard, what I felt. It wasn't just in my head, it was something sinister, something beyond explanation. The fear of those unexplained noises, of being watched, still lingers, haunting my every step in those backwoods. I was hiking in the woods, just seeking a bit of solitude and peace. The trees were thick, blocking out most of the sunlight, and the air felt heavy with silence. That's when I saw it, a clearing up ahead. Curiosity got the better of me, and I approached cautiously. As I got closer, I saw small cabins and people moving about. It was like a community, but something felt off. I thought about leaving, not wanting to intrude, but I needed directions. I approached a woman, trying to ask for help, but she looked at me with suspicion, her eyes cold. I tried to explain I was lost, looking for a way out, but she just stared, and then turned and walked away. It felt weird, the way they looked at me, like I didn't belong there. I walked around, trying to find someone more willing to talk, but everyone I encountered seemed distant, aloof. I could feel their eyes on me, like I was being watched. Then, I heard whispers, hushed conversations that stopped when I approached. It sent shivers down my spine. It felt like they were talking about me. I needed to leave, but I got turned around, lost in a maze of cabins. Panic started rising in me. I didn't like the way they were looking at me, like I was an intruder. I found myself back at the center of the commune, and that's when a man approached, his eyes hard, suspicion dripping from every word he said. He accused me of spying, of wanting to cause trouble. I tried to reason, to explain that I meant no harm, but he didn't want to listen. His hostility grew, and I felt a growing sense of danger. They started gathering around, watching me, whispering among themselves. Fear clouded me. I just wanted to get out of there, to find my way back to safety. I tried to leave, but they blocked my path, their faces stern, unwelcoming. I didn't know what to do. I felt trapped, like prey surrounded by predators. I made a run for it, pushing through the crowd, but they grabbed me, pulling me back. I struggled, heart pounding, trying to break free. The man accused me of trying to leave without their permission, of being a threat to their safety. I pleaded, begged to be let go, but they were relentless. They dragged me to a cabin, locking me inside. Fear consumed me. I didn't know what they were going to do. I banged on the door, screaming for help, but no one came. Hours passed, and I managed to break a window, escaping into the woods. I ran, not stopping until I reached my car, hands trembling as I fumbled for the keys. I drove until I found help, reporting what happened, but they said it was a private community, no laws broken. But I knew what I felt, the hostility, the danger. It was a nightmare I couldn't forget. I wandered off the trail, deeper into the woods. I saw fences, warning signs, but I didn't pay much attention. I was lost in my thoughts until I stumbled upon a gate. It was old, rusty, like it hadn't been opened in years. Curiosity got the best of me. I pushed the gate, and it creaked open. I thought it was just an abandoned area, but it was more than that. As I walked in, I noticed cameras, lots of them. They were hidden, watching my every move. It made me uneasy. I didn't belong there. I tried to leave, but I got turned around. Panic set in. I didn't know where I was or how to get out. That's when I heard the noise, helicopters, distant but getting closer. I tried to hide, but it was no use. They found me, guys in uniform, asking questions I didn't have answers to. They were serious, telling me I had entered a restricted military zone. I tried to explain that I was lost, that I didn't mean any harm, but they didn't buy it. They were taking this seriously, talking about protocols, potential security threats. They detained me, blindfolded, and took me to a building, asking more questions. I felt helpless, like I'd stumbled into something I shouldn't have. They accused me of trespassing, of risking national security. I pleaded, trying to make them understand, but they were cold, unfazed. They locked me in a room, and I could hear voices outside, talking about what to do with me. Fear gripped me. I didn't know what was going to happen. Hours passed, and they came back, saying they'd let me go, but I had to sign some documents, promising not to disclose what I saw. It felt like they were silencing me. I signed. I just wanted to leave, to forget this whole mess. But as I walked out, I saw guards, their eyes following me, like I was marked. I drove until I found help, reporting what happened, but they said it was a restricted area, and I shouldn't have been there. They dismissed it like it was nothing. But I knew what I experienced, the fear, the suspicion. It's like I stumbled upon something big, something the government didn't want anyone to know about. I couldn't shake off the feeling of being watched, of being targeted. It's a nightmare I can't escape, like I've become a pawn in a game I never wanted to play. I remember that day vividly. It was an ordinary hike, exploring the remote trails I'd often frequented. The woods seemed unchanged, the trees standing tall and the sunlight filtering through the foliage. But as I ventured deeper, something caught my eye, a steeple protruding from the trees. Curiosity nudged me forward, leading me off the beaten path. I stumbled upon an old, dilapidated church nestled amidst the wilderness. Its weathered exterior spoke of years of abandonment, yet something compelled me to step inside. The door creaked open, the musty scent of decay hitting my nostrils. Darkness enveloped me as I stepped into the nave. The air felt heavy, as if the silence held ancient secrets. Illuminated by shards of sunlight, the church's interior was hauntingly beautiful, adorned with faded stained glass windows and decaying pews. But my gaze lingered on the altar, a sinister air seemed to linger around it. Curiosity turned to unease as I noticed strange markings etched into the walls. Symbols I couldn't decipher, evoking a sense of foreboding. It felt as though the church held secrets buried deep within its walls. As I explored further, a chilling discovery awaited, a hidden chamber concealed behind a tapestry. I pushed it aside, revealing a narrow passageway. Darkness swallowed the light, but my curiosity drove me to venture into the unknown. The passageway led to a cryptic chamber, adorned with candles flickering eerily in the dimness. The walls were adorned with cryptic writings, unsettling to decipher. My heart raced, a sense of unease creeping over me. In the center of the chamber stood an altar, shrouded in shadows. But what sent shivers down my spine was the presence of odd artifacts, ancient-looking books, strange utensils, and remnants of what appeared to be ceremonial rituals. My mind raced with questions, fear mingling with curiosity. What practices were concealed in this secluded church? What dark history lay dormant within its walls? An oppressive feeling surrounded me, as if unseen eyes were watching my every move. The air grew thicker, and a sense of dread settled in, urging me to leave. As I turned to exit, the door creaked shut. Panic surged within me as I tried to open it, but it seemed stuck, sealing me inside this macabre sanctuary. Fear gripped me, my heart pounding against my chest. Desperation took hold as I pounded on the door, pleading for release, but there was no response, only silence mocking my terror. The atmosphere grew colder, the candles flickering ominously. Shadows danced on the walls, and whispers echoed through the chamber, unintelligible yet haunting. Time felt distorted, as if I were trapped in a nightmare with no end in sight. I pressed my palms against the door, my breath shallow, trying to steady my racing heart. Amidst the panic, a glimmer of hope, another door concealed behind a tapestry. I rushed towards it, pushing it open with all my might, greeted by a blinding burst of sunlight. I stumbled out into the woods, gasping for air, relief flooding through me. The church loomed behind me, a sinister silhouette against the trees, its secrets forever haunting my memory. I fled from that place, haunted by the chilling encounter. It was a brush with something beyond comprehension, a revelation of disturbing practices hidden within the walls of that mysterious church. Its dark secrets, a part of a past I wished I'd never uncovered, haunted my thoughts for days to come. It was meant to be a simple hiking trip in the woods, a chance to unwind and connect with nature. But it took a terrifying turn that I could never have anticipated. The trail was beautiful, surrounded by lush greenery and the sweet scent of pine. I'd been hiking for hours, enjoying the solitude. But as the trail wound deeper into the woods, I started noticing small signs nailed to trees, warnings about private property. Naively, I brushed them off, assuming they were old markers or perhaps just a misunderstanding. But as I walked on, the signs became more frequent, more aggressive, warning me to stay out. I ignored the signs, thinking they might have been put up by overzealous landowners. It was an honest mistake, or so I thought. Suddenly, I heard rustling in the bushes, and a voice boomed from behind the trees. I froze, seeing two men emerge, their expressions hostile, their eyes locked onto me with suspicion. I tried to explain, to apologize for misunderstanding the signs, but their faces hardened, their stance aggressive. They accused me of trespassing, their words laced with anger. I attempted to reason with them, but they showed no mercy, their hostility escalating. They demanded I leave immediately, their voices booming with authority. Fear started creeping in as I realized the severity of the situation. These locals were not just upset, they were downright threatening. I turned to leave, but they followed, their footsteps heavy behind me. Panic surged within me as I quickened my pace, trying to put distance between us. But they were relentless, their shouts growing louder, their threats becoming more explicit. They made it clear I was not welcome, their anger palpable. I tried to find my way back to the trail, but everything looked unfamiliar, the woods closing in around me like a maze. Fear and desperation gnawed at me as I scrambled through the trees, feeling their eyes boring into my back. Every sound amplified my terror, the snap of twigs, the rustle of leaves, it all felt like an impending danger. I was lost, disoriented, and their pursuit fueled my fear. I stumbled upon a clearing, hoping for a way out, but it only led to a dead end. Panic surged within me as I realized I was trapped, with no way to escape their hostility. The men closed in, their faces contorted with rage. I pleaded, my voice trembling, but they showed no mercy. Their threats turned more menacing, their gestures aggressive. I felt a surge of adrenaline, survival instincts kicking in. I bolted in a random direction, heart pounding, lungs burning, desperate to find an escape route. The woods felt like a maze, every turn leading me deeper into unfamiliar territory. I prayed for help, for some sign of civilization, but the woods seemed endless, suffocating. Exhaustion weighed me down, but I couldn't stop, their shouts still echoing behind me. Fear drove me forward, a primal need to survive overtaking everything else. Finally, I saw a familiar trail marker in the distance. Relief flooded through me, but the sound of their pursuit still lingered, urging me to run faster. I broke through the trees, stumbling onto the trail, and didn't stop until I reached the safety of my car. My heart raced, and my body shook with fear and exhaustion. It was a nightmare, a misunderstanding that turned into a terrifying ordeal. The hostility of those locals, their aggression and threats, made that hike an experience I'd never forget. I'll set the scene for you. Picture this, a sprawling expanse of woods, thickets, and overgrown paths. I was exploring what seemed like abandoned land, somewhere deep in the backwoods, but what I found was far from deserted. The land, once owned, was now foreclosed upon, but curiosity got the best of me. I wanted to see what had become of it, maybe uncover some hidden treasures among the overgrown ruins. Little did I know, the remnants of the past were far more chilling than I could have imagined. I'd been wandering for a while, admiring the wild beauty of the area when I noticed something strange, a flicker of movement in the distance. I brushed it off at first, assuming it was just my imagination playing tricks on me. But as I ventured deeper, the unease settled in. I saw figures darting among the trees, fleeting glimpses that made me question if I was truly alone out there. My heart began to race, and a sense of being watched clung to me like a shadow. The further I ventured, the more convinced I became that someone was lurking in the shadows, keeping an eye on me. Every rustle of leaves, every snap of a twig felt like a warning, like I was intruding on someone's territory. Then, I stumbled upon what appeared to be remnants of an old homestead, dilapidated structures, a decaying barn, and a sense of abandonment that hung heavy in the air. But it was far from deserted. As I cautiously explored, I heard whispers, a murmur of voices, faint yet unmistakable. My blood ran cold. I couldn't make out the words, but the sound of conversation echoed around me, sending shivers down my spine. The hairs on the back of my neck stood on end as I realized that the land I thought was vacant had hidden occupants, the previous owners still lingering, haunting the place. I tried to make my way back, to retreat from the unsettling feeling of being watched, but every step felt like an intrusion into their domain. The voices grew louder, the whispers becoming more audible, almost as if they were drawing closer. Panic began to gnaw at me, and I quickened my pace, desperate to escape the eerie atmosphere that surrounded me. But then, I saw a glimpse of figures moving among the trees, their faces hidden in the shadows. They seemed spectral, like ghosts of the past, yet undeniably real. I felt a chill run down my spine as I realized I wasn't alone. The foreclosed land was not empty, it was inhabited by those who had once called it home. I wanted to run, to flee from that haunting scene, but fear rooted me to the spot. I was caught in a chilling moment, a trespasser in someone else's memories, surrounded by the echoes of the past. I heard footsteps, soft but distinct, drawing closer. My heart raced, my breath shallow. I couldn't shake the feeling of being unwelcome, an intruder in a place that held secrets I wasn't meant to discover. I turned to leave, to escape the unnerving presence, but they were there, standing in my path, their faces obscured by the shadows, their figures hauntingly real. I couldn't comprehend why they lingered there, why they watched me with such intensity. The air crackled with tension, and I could feel their gaze fixed on me, an unspoken warning to leave their past undisturbed. A wave of panic surged within me as I realized my presence had disturbed something beyond my understanding. I was an unwitting trespasser in a place haunted by memories, a realm I had no right to intrude upon. I retreated slowly, my steps faltering, my mind racing with the inexplicable encounter. Every instinct urged me to run, to escape from the unsettling energy that enveloped the foreclosed land. As I hurried away, the voices and figures faded, but the chill lingered. The encounter had left an indelible mark on me, a haunting memory of an eerie rendezvous with the previous inhabitants of that forsaken land. I remember that camping trip like it was yesterday, all of us excited for a weekend in the wilderness, surrounded by nature's tranquility. We picked a remote spot deep in the woods, a perfect escape from the chaos of city life. The first day was idyllic, setting up tents, gathering firewood, and sharing stories under the stars. But on the second night, things took a chilling turn. We noticed some traps set around our campsite, a bit odd for a public camping area. Initially, we brushed it off, assuming it was just someone trying to catch some wildlife for observation. As night fell, strange sounds echoed through the woods, rustling leaves, twigs snapping. We chalked it up to nocturnal animals scavenging around our camp, trying not to let it bother us. But then, we saw a figure lurking in the trees, a silhouette against the moonlit backdrop. Our hearts skipped a beat, and a sense of unease settled over us. It looked like someone was watching, observing our every move from a distance. Anxiety crept in as the figure disappeared into the darkness. We brushed it off as nerves, but the atmosphere felt charged with an inexplicable tension. Then, the night erupted with bone-chilling howls, no ordinary forest sounds. They were human, too human. Fear clenched at our chests as the howls grew closer, closer than comfort allowed. We huddled together, trying to keep calm, hoping it was just some local prankster trying to spook us. But the unease lingered, the air thick with an ominous aura. As the fire crackled, casting eerie shadows, we noticed movement among the trees. Shapes darted in and out of the shadows, fleeting glimpses that sent shivers down our spines. Suddenly, something crashed through the bushes, a trap, one of the same ones we'd seen earlier, its jaws menacingly snapped shut. Fear twisted our stomachs, a cold realization settling in. The howls continued, closer this time, echoing around us, encircling our campsite. Panic set in as we realized we weren't alone in the woods, and we weren't the hunters, we were the prey. We decided to leave, to pack up and get out of there as fast as we could. But every step felt watched, every rustle in the bushes seemed like a lurking threat. We heard whispers, chilling whispers that made our blood run cold. It wasn't just one person out there, it was a group closing in around us. Our attempts to leave only seemed to escalate the situation. The traps we dismissed as harmless now felt like a warning, marking our every move. The night felt endless, filled with paranoia and the sound of footsteps that weren't ours. Every shadow felt like an ambush waiting to happen. We tried to navigate the forest, but it felt like an insurmountable maze, pushing us deeper into unfamiliar territory. Fear surged within us as we realized we were completely disoriented, lost in the darkness. The forest seemed to play tricks on us, branches cracking, leaves rustling, distant whispers. It felt orchestrated, calculated, and our hearts pounded with the fear of the unknown. Every glance over our shoulders revealed fleeting shapes, figures that vanished as quickly as they appeared. We couldn't shake the feeling of being watched, hunted. Exhaustion weighed us down, but we couldn't stop, the terror driving us forward. Fear had replaced rational thought, and all we could do was flee. We stumbled upon our campsite again, our refuge turned into a trap. The owls grew louder, surrounding us from every direction. It was then we realized the wildlife traps weren't meant for animals. We were the prey, ensnared in someone's sick game. Adrenaline surged as we sprinted, our lungs burning, desperate for escape. Every step was a gamble for survival. Finally, we burst through the trees, our campsite vanishing behind us. We ran until our legs gave out, collapsing in a clearing, gasping for breath. The night was etched in our minds, a nightmare that became all too real. We'd stumbled upon someone's twisted game, an ordeal that left us scarred, haunted by the terror of being hunted in the very woods we sought solace in. As I wandered, I stumbled upon a clearing. It felt strange, different from the rest of the woods. In the center, I saw something peculiar, a circle of stones, old and weathered. Curiosity got the better of me, and I approached cautiously. As I got closer, I noticed markings on the stones, symbols etched into their surfaces. They looked ancient, something out of a history book. It sent a shiver down my spine. It didn't feel right. I started digging around the stones, uncovering something buried beneath the dirt. It was a box, small and made of wood. I hesitated but opened it, and inside, there were old artifacts, bones, and trinkets. It felt ominous, like I had disturbed something sacred. I didn't know who or what these belonged to, but it felt wrong to disturb them. As I stood there, the air grew colder, and a feeling of unease settled in. It was like the woods were watching me, judging my every move. I decided to leave, but the moment I turned, the sky darkened, the wind picked up, and the woods fell silent. It was eerie, unnatural. I heard whispers, soft and distant, carrying words I couldn't understand. Fear gripped me. I didn't want to be there anymore. I tried to find my way back, but the path seemed to vanish, trees closing in, leading me in circles. Panic surged. I was lost, trapped in a maze of trees and darkness. I heard footsteps behind me, slow and deliberate. I turned, but there was no one there. The whispers grew louder, like they were all around me. I felt a hand on my shoulder, cold and clammy. I jerked away, heart racing, but there was no one. It was like the woods were playing tricks on me. I ran, branches scratching my face, stumbling over roots. I didn't care, I just wanted to get away. But the whispers followed, growing more urgent, more menacing. I found myself back at the circle of stones, like the woods were mocking me. The artifacts in the box seemed to glimmer in the moonlight, watching me with a haunting gaze. I heard chanting, eerie and otherworldly. It was coming from everywhere, surrounding me. I covered my ears, trying to block it out, but it was in my head. I fell to my knees, overwhelmed by fear and confusion. The whispers turned into voices, speaking in a language I didn't recognize. Then, everything stopped, the chanting, the whispers, the coldness. It was silent, too silent, like the world had paused. I crawled away, crawling until I found a path, a way out. I ran until I reached my car, hands trembling as I fumbled for the keys. I drove until I found help, reporting what happened, but they said it was just my imagination, the woods playing tricks. But I knew what I experienced. It was something ancient, something ominous lurking in those woods. It's a nightmare I can't shake off, a secret buried deep that shouldn't have been disturbed. I'd been a cop for years, seen my fair share of bizarre things, but nothing could have prepared me for what I encountered that day in the backwoods. Dispatch sent me out on a routine call, something about a disturbance in an isolated area, a cabin nestled deep in the woods. I headed out, navigating through winding dirt roads that seemed to disappear into the forest's embrace. The trees towered over me, casting eerie shadows as the sunlight struggled to filter through the dense canopy. Finally, I arrived at the coordinates. The cabin stood alone, surrounded by trees that seemed to encroach upon it, as if nature itself was reclaiming the land. It was an old, weathered structure, giving off an ominous vibe that set my nerves on edge. I approached cautiously, the crunch of gravel beneath my boots the only sound in the desolate silence. There was a peculiar stillness in the air, an unsettling calm that raised the hairs on the back of my neck. I knocked on the door, announcing myself as law enforcement. There was a pause, a tense silence that seemed to stretch on indefinitely. Then, the door creaked open, revealing a figure in the dimly lit cabin. The man standing before me was strange, to say the least, wild-eyed, unkempt, and wearing clothes that looked like they hadn't seen a washing machine in years. He spoke in a raspy voice, barely above a whisper, inviting me in with an unsettling grin. I stepped inside cautiously, my senses on high alert. The interior was dimly lit, casting long shadows across the worn-out furniture. The place reeked of neglect, a musty smell that clung to the air. As I glanced around, I noticed more figures lurking in the corners of the room, shadowy silhouettes that seemed to materialize from the darkness. They were a family, or so they claimed, a motley crew of individuals with an unsettling aura. Their behavior was off, disjointed conversations that hinted at something amiss. I tried to gather information, but their responses were cryptic, veering between eerie laughter and uncomfortable silence. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was deeply wrong here, a primal instinct urging me to leave, to escape the ominous presence that surrounded me. But duty compelled me to stay, to assess the situation and ensure everyone's safety. The longer I stayed, the more unnerved I became. There was a tension in the air, an unspoken threat that loomed over the cabin like a dark cloud. My senses were on high alert, every fiber of my being urging me to tread carefully. I attempted to gather information about the disturbance, but their stories were inconsistent, fragmented, almost as if they were deliberately withholding the truth. I noticed peculiar things, a glint of something metallic beneath the floorboards, hushed conversations that ceased abruptly upon my approach, and a peculiar marking etched into the wall. Then, a feeling of dread settled in, a gut-wrenching realization that I might not be leaving this cabin unscathed. It felt like I'd stepped into a situation far beyond my comprehension, a tangled web of secrets and danger. I knew I had to call for backup, to have more eyes on this bizarre situation. But as I reached for my radio, my hand froze. Their piercing gazes were fixed on me, an unspoken warning to leave well enough alone. My heart pounded in my chest as I contemplated my next move. The atmosphere grew thicker, suffocating, a tension that seemed to coil around me like a vice. Suddenly, the power in the cabin flickered, casting the room into momentary darkness. In that brief moment, I glimpsed something, a flash of movement, figures darting across the room, swift and silent. Fear gripped me as I realized the gravity of the situation. I was outnumbered, trapped in a cabin with a family whose intentions were unclear, but undoubtedly sinister. I made a split-second decision to retreat, to get out of that cabin and call for backup. But as I turned towards the door, it slammed shut, sealing me inside with them. Panic surged within me, my heart racing with a primal fear. I tried the windows, but they were barred shut, trapping me in a nightmare from which I couldn't escape. The family members circled around me, their faces twisted into unsettling grins. They spoke in hushed tones, their words carrying a menacing undertone. My mind raced, searching for a way out, an escape from the clutches of this strange and unsettling family. But the cabin felt like a prison, its walls closing in around me, suffocating me with a sense of impending doom. I pleaded with them to let me go, to allow me to leave unharmed. But their responses were cryptic, their intentions veiled behind a facade of eerie calm. Time seemed to stand still, every second feeling like an eternity in that stifling atmosphere. I felt like prey, cornered by predators whose intentions were unknown but undoubtedly malicious. My training kicked in, urging me to stay calm, to strategize an escape plan. But fear had a vice-like grip on me, paralyzing my thoughts, rendering me helpless in the face of this chilling encounter. The minutes stretched into hours, the cabin feeling like a prison from which there was no escape. I felt like a pawn in their game, a piece in a puzzle I couldn't comprehend. Just when despair threatened to consume me entirely, I heard the distant sound of approaching sirens. Relief flooded through me, the cavalry had arrived, salvation was within reach. The family's demeanor shifted, a fleeting moment of panic crossing their faces. In that moment of distraction, I seized the opportunity, making a desperate dash towards the door. The lock gave way, and I burst out into the open, greeted by the sight of fellow officers rushing towards the cabin. I stumbled towards them, gasping for breath, my heart pounding in my chest. I relayed the urgency of the situation, warning them of the dangers lurking inside. Backup arrived swiftly, surrounding the cabin, their voices ringing out in commands as they cautiously approached. As I watched from a safe distance, I couldn't shake the bone-chilling encounter, the strange family, the eerie cabin, and the unspoken threat that lingered in the air. The family was taken into custody, but the eerie feeling of that encounter remained etched into my memory, a chilling reminder of a nightmare I'd barely escaped.